Hi, this is Gene Hammett. I'm the host of Leaders in the Trenches. My question for you today is, how do you get your employees to go beyond responsibility to take full ownership for the work and for the client experience, for their projects? That is the question, right? How do you get them to go beyond 9 to 5 thinking? How do you get them to think like founders and owners? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a treat today. I'm going to give you an excerpt from a speech I recently did to a group called Gulf Coast CEO Forum. These are multi-million-dollar business owners and founders, and they really wanted to understand how to grow faster. And so that's what we're talking about. This is just a piece of it. So here's the speech right now.
Do you remember your first car? The one you paid your own money for? What color was it?
Red.
Anybody else?
Multiple colors.
I remember my first car. It was nothing special about that car. It was kind of a crap brown color. It had almost 100,000 miles on it, but you know what was special about that car? I owned it. I paid for it. My dad paid half, I paid the other half, but I owned that car. Let me ask you another question. Do you remember the color of your first rental car? You guys are old enough to know that. I know you didn't rent one just yesterday. But you went up to the counter, looked over that contract, you signed, initialed, you accepted responsibility for that car, right? If you wrecked it, you would have to pay for it. There's a big gap in responsibility and ownership. We're going to talk about that today. I study the Inc. 5000. This is the fastest growing companies privately held in the United States. They're the top 1% of growth. Do we have any Inc. 5000 level companies here? 1, 2? Fantastic. There's a lot of industries represented in this. So if you think your industry is too stable to not be here, look at this. 23,000 companies over 11 years. This research is available. I mean, I can give it to you if you want to. I know you can barely read the slide, but I wanted you to see that there's a huge variety of companies that are growing really fast. Let's put this in perspective. The average company over a 3-year period is growing between 5 and 40%. 40% is not too bad, right? I went to the CEOs of the fastest growing companies. I sat down with them, had these conversations, I surveyed them, I had one-on-one talks about what's growing them. Their average growth, 2,700% plus. That's what I'm sharing with you today. What could we learn from those companies that are growing so fast? A few months ago, I had an interview with Ben Wright with Velocity Global, number 4 on the list. This is astronomical when I say this, and it's probably unbelievable, but his company over a 3-year period grew 39,000%. Everyone says, well, how big was the company when he started? Because I know math. Today, he's over 50 million. To give you an aspect of how fast he grew. First-time entrepreneur. A lot of the stuff we talk about today comes from not only his interview, but the other interviews I had with those leaders. I asked them about their sales and marketing. I asked them about the strategies that were driving growth, because that's where I've spent a lot of my time, is how to get companies to grow more from a revenue standpoint. And I noticed a lot of my companies were having a tough time getting the employees aligned with that. So I asked this question. It's a pretty good question, right? With big growth goals, how do you get your employees motivated to take responsibility for those goals? You like that question? I like it. I wanted to understand how they did that. A few interviews into it, and I realized it wasn't about responsibility. It was about ownership. That got them to feel, they've got to get the employees to feel like owners inside the work. Even if they don't have an employee stock ownership program, even if they don't have commissions that they're in front of them. How do you get someone to feel like an owner when it comes to the work that they're doing and the clients they're serving? That's what we're talking about today. Ownership is yes or no, black or white. This is the reason why I opened up the story today to the talk and asked you about your rental car and your car that you owned. The way you feel about the rental car now is more like a trash can and the way you feel about your car that you own is quite different. Would you agree to that? Do you want your employees to treat their work like just with responsibility or a sense of ownership? I'm not saying this is easy, but this is what's required if you want to stay relevant in today's marketplace. It's an own it culture. How do you get them to own the project, own the client experience?
Hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed giving it. I know it's not the full speech, and you may want to know more about how you could actually spark ownership beyond just paying for people and giving them profit sharing and all of the things that you can use monetarily. It can be done from the internal perspective, and actually it's more effective if it's done from the internal, but you have to get some things aligned right. If you have any questions about that, make sure you reach out to me at gene@genehammett.com. As always, lead with courage. See you next time.